Anyway, joining us right now, an aspiring media mogul. I mean, he's the guy started out as a player, went on to be a coach. Now he's an author. He's a studio analyst. Who knows where he's going to be next? I'm talking about Marcus Ray. Marcus, good morning.
Sam, good morning, brother. I was listening to you guys talk about that clarification, that clarify. You got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah, man. Especially when, like you said, we're people might listen to you for maybe 2 minutes, and they take that 2 minutes and maybe miss the build up. Got to make sure you get what you're saying out there correctly, which you do all the time, Marcus. And we've had an opportunity in the past to talk to you about your combine experience. Well, now the combine, some of the results are in. So now we want you to kind of analyze a bit, kind of tell us how you think guys are going to fare based on how they performed. And let's look first at the defensive backs. And you had a couple of guys right here in the Big Ten, and I'm talking about this from the Lions' perspective, a couple of guys in the Big Ten that tested fairly well. Darqueze Dennard came in at about 5'11", and initially it was a 4.42, Marcus, but when they gave the actual electronic time, it was a 4.52, and I think, Ira, you said Bradley Roby was a 4.39, right? Bradley Roby was a 4.39. So what do you think of both of those guys, their draft prospects in the aftermath of their combine performances?
Number one, the 40-yard dash is something that you have to know how to run, and you can train for it. And I don't think that, neither one of those guys play that fast on the football field, in my opinion, when I watch them on tape.
So you don't think Dennard plays at 4.51?
I was thinking more about the 4.4.
Okay, yeah, the hand time. Gotcha.
Yeah. I think the Dennard plays at 4.5. I do. I don't think Roby plays nowhere near sub 4.4. But some guys test well. But when you train for something, then it's like you're specifically aiming to do just that. But then once we get back to August, I bet if you timed them again, or if you timed them in November, that's not they can't just roll out of the bed and play at that speed or run at that speed. But those times will help them. And I think everyone knew Dennard was probably high 4.4, low 4.5, and that's okay as long as he wasn't slower than that. I think his stock is based off of his film, and some of those guys are locked in those top 24 or 32 prospects, regardless of what they time. It's almost turning like the high schoolers, same way with those camps. This guy is a 4-star. He plays in this game. He gets a 5th star. So, and then they keep the rankings. My thing is, they didn't hurt themselves by running those times. And I don't think Dennard helped him. I think he just quieted some doubters. He shut down some doubters, but congratulations to both of those kids.
Right. And so from a Michigan perspective, Taylor DeWan runs in the 4.8s, verticals 30 inches, I think 29 reps at 225 on the bench. With Jeremy Gallen, he came in at 5'7", but Marcus, he ran a 4.49. I got to believe that helped. Maybe Taylor, I don't know what you think. Maybe Taylor didn't help himself. He didn't hurt himself clearly, but I really believe that Jeremy probably helped himself at the combine.
Oh, Jeremy Gallen definitely helped himself. And when you're that small, I mean, we all figured he was about 5'7", tops, max. And, the combine will chop you down in a heartbeat. But for him to run that fast, I think it's pretty good. There's times when we saw him in games where he was out in the open and sometimes he hit the home run, sometimes he didn't, but we didn't necessarily consider him a burner. But Jeremy's a football player, and Jeremy will get drafted, in my opinion. And I think he'll be more of a return man, possession receiver type. He'll have an opportunity to make the team. And when I say drafted, I'm thinking maybe later rounds, because even when you're 5'7", you still need to, if you're going to be drafted, in the earlier rounds, you still got to go 4.3, 4.2. But his film speaks for itself. He's a football player. and he showed that he's a step faster than what most people thought. But he also showed that he's a little shorter than they probably thought too. So, you know what I mean? It kind of goes hand in hand. But he's a football player, and he'll get a shot. As far as Taylor is concerned, I think his stock is set. I mean, it is what it is. It's going to come down to what team likes him at the time of need when they're on the board. See, that's kind of how it goes. It's like when a team is on the board, they have a need, or they may take the best football player, or whatever it comes down to. Taylor running a 4.8 just shows that he's in shape and he's athletic. But I still don't think that'll move him from wherever he is on the board right now. That just solidifies his spot, and it just gives us more to talk about, you know, when those guys take the uniform off.
All right, so Marcus, you're a DB. Who's the better receiver in this draft? Sammy Watkins, who wound up running a 4.43, or Mike Evans, who is 6'5" and about 235 pounds, ran, I believe it was a 4.51 or a 4.52. Who do you think is the best receiver in this draft?
You know, I'm going to go with boy. Give me Sammy. Sammy is he's just a guy I think that can turn the league upside down with his skill set, being able to catch the ball and make plays in space. He'll run by you. He can block. He can return kicks. Anytime he touches the football, it could go the other way. The other guy, Mike, is cool. I mean, he's cool, just tall, he's a freak. Long strider. Can go up high, catch the ball. Definitely a matchup problem. I think Sammy Sammy can do it all. Probably could play running back if he had to too, or safety. He has that body type. When I watched him, I know he didn't make a lot of plays down the field in that bowl game against Ohio State, but he definitely showed some explosiveness after the catch, and he won that game for Clemson.
I gotcha. All right, one more combine question for you, Marcus, then we'll move on to talking about Michigan football. We talked about Michael Sam, and he did very well in the interview portion of the combine. But as far as the testing part of it, it was underwhelming. His height and weight were what they expected, 6'2", 261. But in the 40, he ran a 4.91. He had a 25.5-inch vertical, and he did 17 reps at 225. I'm curious if you think that hurt his stock.
Of course it hurt his stock. That right there, in today's world, it's not good enough, testing-wise. It has nothing to do with being a good football player. It just means that somebody's not going to take him on the first 3 rounds. They invest money in workouts. They invest money in big-time quarterbacks. And, it's funny you say that because I, without knowing Sam, I thought this was going to be a guy who was going to turn the combine upside down. I thought, outside looking in without knowing much about the kid, and then with his announcement and bringing all that stuff on, to me it kind of seems like, if you ain't about to turn out the combine or not. I knew when I walked into Indianapolis, I was not going to run a 4.3. I was going to measure out at 5'11", and that I wasn't going to do more than 20 reps. I knew that going into it. Okay? Now, I guess my point is, it's like he was making it, let me clarify. I think that he knew going into the combine that his chances of making a team from his workout, or at least getting drafted high, his chance of getting drafted high was not going to happen with his workout. Let's just say that's my statement. Mm-hmm. He knew going into that, whatever situation he was entering, by the time he left the combine, he wasn't going to make himself any money.
Gotcha. 8:17 on a Wednesday here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA. Online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, I Rewind, Trouble on the other side of the glass. We're talking to Marcus Ray for some Rays of Light. So, Marcus, spring practice underway officially yesterday. And we got word of some positions, which is actually, we heard about the biggest one last week. I'm curious, what's your take on Jake Ryan at the Mike backer? What do you think of that move?
I learned in recruiting a long time ago when I was coaching for Butch Jones. who I think is a phenomenal football coach, by the way, down in Tennessee. I learned in the recruiting process that when you start to study body types or the way guys play, especially coming out of high school, he always said, hey, he's either a defensive end or he's a Mike backer. And I'm thinking, how do you come up with those two combinations from recruiting? How is a guy either a defensive end or a Mike backer? And we were looking at body types. And like if a guy was super tall, he could play in the middle, but he probably can't play left, outsiders. So it doesn't surprise me now because Jake is a tweener. Like, I've stood next to Jake. I've talked to him. I watched him play. I think he could play all three linebacker positions in a 4-3. He's a stand-up. He could play the stand-up 9 technique as a Sam linebacker. And then, he can play tackle to tackle at the mic. He's a football player, and he's heads up and he's smart. And he's athletic enough to play the wheel where you can run sideline to sideline. For Jared Irons and a lot of those guys used to make a lot of plays because they had a big 3 technique, like Josh Williams standing in front of them commanding a double team. So, to me, whatever system that fits, because I think Greg is moving more to a 4-3 stack, instead of that 4-3 under front where it looks like a 5-2. So it doesn't surprise me that because Jake can rush the passer. So it goes all the way back to something I learned 6 years ago. If he can play Mike defensive end, if he can rush the passer, he can probably play Mike backer.
So for the fans listening, explain the difference between the over and the under front, the 4-3 over and the 4-3 under. What's the difference? Kind of spell that out. What you just called the stat. Yeah,
I'll just give you a real Madden. Since I'm the best in Madden 25, I'll just describe it in my Madden kind of deal. When you see the two numbers, the 4 and the 3, that means that there's 4 defensive linemen on the field and 3 linebackers. But it doesn't always mean that those 3 linebackers are going to stand behind the defensive line. Now, that in an over front, over just means that we're going to put the biggest defensive tackle, the 3 technique. You can look at it as A gap, B gap. Let's say the B gap player. He just lines up to the tight end side, and then the nose guard, like the A gap player, and then defensive end, where it's called the big bubble. They actually play to the weak side. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the over front, where it's a true 4 defensive linemen down, 3 linebackers behind the line of scrimmage. That's technically an over alignment, but it's because of where that defensive tackle, where Big Branch would line up. He would come out, break the huddle. He's lining up to the tight end.
So the strength of the defense is to the offensive strong side.
Exactly right. But the 3 linebackers are also off the ball. That's over. Strength is set to the tight end, 3 linebackers off the ball. And when you go under front, it looks more like a 5-2 defense, because now the strength is set to the weak side. The strength is that 3 technique, that person that lines up in between the guard and tackle. Now he's lined up to the weak side. And to the strong side of the formation, you have an A-gap player. The B-gap is open now. So it's a 1, a 5, and a stand-up 9. So it looks like a 5-2. But if the tight end was to get up and trade to the other side, and the linebacker just slides back into a stack, that's why over and under are married. The front doesn't have to move. So I don't want to get too complicated with that. But it just looks like a 5-man front, the under, where you get up on the tight end with a stand-up linebacker. You have 2. You have 1 Sam standing up, and a Mike and Will playing off the ball in the A-gap and B-gap to their side. But the tight end was the trade, and they can easily slide. The Sam linebacker can leave the line of scrimmage, step back into the linebacker area, and the Mike and Will will slide over, and you're back in your 4-3 stack. So that kind of leads into the next, because there was a lot of people when I said last week when Brady came on and said Jake Ryan to Mike. We came back later in the show, and I said, well, look for James Ross to be the Sam. And people are like, oh, there's just no way. There's just no way he could be a Sam. Explain why, other than the fact that the guy's in his 3rd year, he should be bigger and stronger physically. Explain why this defense might be more conducive
to James Ross being able to be successful out there playing at Sam?
Well, he's a kid that, you see, you almost got to understand football to really know why. And trust me, let's just put it like this. I'm going to play devil's advocate. Coaches wouldn't move him to Sam, technically, by trade, just by the letter on paper, if it didn't have something to do with the Sam still being associated with the Mike. In an over front, where you got a 1 technique and a 5, that's a bubble right there. And when you have those 3 linebackers, the Sam and the Mike kind of together are responsible for that big bubble. So he's still an inside linebacker, technically. People think Sam is the guy that always stands over the tight end. And then the Sam is sometimes the guy who can walk out in space and play like when you don't want to go to nickel and you still want to play zone. You know, Ross is athletic enough to play out there in space and cover the flats, you know, and blitz off the edge. You know, so Sam, Mike, and Will, basically those 3 linebackers are interchangeable. They're very interchangeable, so Ross is going to be able to play that position with his skill set because you're not asking him to do too much more differently than what he did at the Mike. It's just 2 gaps over. The Mike is normally an A-gap kind of player, but in this, what Greg and those guys are getting ready to do, which is just playing a base 4-3 defense, a base 4-3 with an over front, the Mike now, he lines up kind of over the center, and he's going to help that Sam linebacker be responsible for that weak side bubble because there's no defensive lineman there. Because remember, to the strong side, you got that 3 technique there, so the wheel is protected because the 3 technique is sitting right in that B gap. So the Mike has to go both ways. Jake Ryan is a guy that can do that, and if there's an ISO that way, in an I formation ISO, James Ross at the Sam, you need a kid who's used to taking on ISOs, who used to play the Mike, that can get downhill in that B gap and blow that thing up, and he can do that.
8:25 on a Wednesday. Great stuff from Marcus Ray. Breaking it down, and see, this is where the podcast is very, very important because you can play that back for Marcus Ray and get some more rays of light moving forward. So, Marcus, look, let's talk a little bit about the quarterback position because this has been my take on it this morning. Getting a lot of people who saying, "Oh, you aren't giving the backup a true shot," and you know Michigan might be better with Devin at wide receiver. And I understand that there's competition at every position, even at quarterback. But my take has been, unless Devin comes in, doesn't apply himself, unless Devin comes in, isn't 100%, unless he comes in and just doesn't exhibit the type of work ethic that we've seen him exhibit in the past, I can't see a scenario under which he doesn't win this job. I'm curious where you stand on that.
Well, I stand probably on the block next to the one you're standing on because I don't see how it's humanly possible that, number one, you lose your job to injury. And let's say if he doesn't play this spring, okay, he still didn't lose his job. That used to be the Michigan way. You didn't lose your job if you got hurt. The other thing is he's a better quarterback for the team right now. And if it was going to come down to him moving around different positions or not getting a chance to play his 5th year, why even fight to have him get the red shirt so he can come back? You know, and let me go out on a limb, and I don't think this needs any clarification. If Devin Gardner is not the starting quarterback next year, Michigan will win 5 games. That has nothing to do with Shane not being able to play the position. He's going to be an NFL quarterback without question. But next year, the quarterback for Team 135 is number 98. Used to be number 12. I say that from a leadership standpoint. As a matter of fact, you won 7 games with him in there. If you take him off the team last year, being honest, if you take him off the team last year, even with him out there, you still almost go 3-8. He gives you, my point, he gives you the best chance to win. And if it is an open competition, be ready to deal with some of the stuff that comes with having a young quarterback. Like a house divided. Some guys are, that team will be divided right down the middle if Brady Hoke does a 5th-year senior just like that, flat out. Devin Gardner isn't the starting quarterback because I don't see him truly getting beat out. I'm just telling you right now, and it's not smart. See, if you got a guy with 2 years left or 3 years left to play, give him time to develop. Shane walked into being a backup. So because Michigan didn't win 12 games last year, everybody wants to fix this or fix that. But they tend to forget that Devin Gardner threw for 500 yards and 400 yards. First time in Michigan history that we've seen that in the same season behind a very average offensive line. Very average. And you can throw Shane Morrison if you want to with two green, two raw, young tackles. Instead of not being able to run the ball, we won't be able to pass the ball next year because everyone's going to tee off on the perimeter and because the strength of the line supposedly was on the outside. You got to be careful what you wish for because I think that can hurt in recruiting. If that happens with Devin Gardner, Michigan will probably never get another recruit out of Detroit or that area. I'm not saying we need any more because I ain't seen too many of them out there world beating anyway. Just being honest, Sam. You gotta understand.
Hey man, hey, Foot is your guy, right? You just harpooned the whole city.
I'm telling you. Hey, you can sit Devin down if you want to, and then don't show back up around Telegraph and nothing. Or the east side, or stay out of all of downtown. I'm telling you right now, let Devin finish. He gives you the best chance of winning. Maybe last year, maybe not moving him to back to receiver was the answer if you were recruiting Shane anyway. It doesn't make any sense. But if you did move him to receiver last year around midseason, then out of need, but let Devin play. He's actually the scouts love him. It's not pretty, but it's not ugly either. He's efficient. And if you don't have Devin Gardner at quarterback, then we'll take your 5-7 season and be happy, and then hope everything else works out.
All right. Well, hey man, sometimes it takes a guy who suited up and was an All-American and a captain to hammer it home to some folks much better. I mean, sometimes that's what it takes. And then even there's still some others that's not even enough. So. That's Irish shaking his head over there. Marcus, tell us where people can get their hands on Rays of Light.
Rays of Light, you can email me at mray29@gmail.com. You can also go walk into the MDen, or you can go to the mden.com, go to amazon.com, iBooks, ebook, Amazon, Kindle, it's all there. And as always, I'm sure this time I'll get some emails from this conversation, and you can call me. As Sam knows, my ringer's off, so I am, but I will call you back, if it's a safe call, 734-645-9618. I saw Ira yesterday, too, doing the family thing. That was all good, man. So I'll be, through this show, like Sam and I, we talked the other day, but through this show, I got an opportunity to possibly go down and do a speaking engagement down in San Antonio. So always the Rays of Light segment on WTKA has worked miracles, and it's been very beneficial both ways. So and I got a speaking engagement on Friday down in Columbus, down in the middle school. So I'll be all over the place. But you can always get those Rays of Light in those manners. So appreciate it, Sam and Ira. Y'all take care, man.
Appreciate you, Marcus Ray, and I tell you, folks, it will become more and more clear in the months and years to come. Just that's a guy right there, Marcus Ray, that has, from a college player to doing what he's doing now, has cleared some hurdles. Proud of him. 8:32 on a Wednesday. I thought he hit that Devin Gardner point out of the park. What about you, Mr. Weitraub?
I agree. The problem is that it's going to fall on deaf ears. Those who already agree with him are going to say, yep, and those that don't agree with him are going to say, whatever.
8:32 on a Wednesday. We have to get to a break. Back on the other side, Ira continues his interview series, the University of Michigan Compliance Department. So stay tuned for that here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, the official voice of University of Michigan.